Welcome to Simple Career, a channel where we bring in professionals from different industries so that they can share their value, they can share their experience. And this way, it'll help you get hired or clear interviews. You're able to take valuable career tips, and it'll also help you increase the amount of knowledge to shape your career. So, in today's video, we have Dr. Kalpana Gopalan. She is an IAS officer in India and she has been serving as a civil servant for nearly 33 years. Based on her experience, she will be talking about the role of an IAS officer. How does the career of an IAS officer shape with time? And what are the different opportunities you get in this field? So, if you want to watch more of such videos, ensure you subscribe and make sure you hit the like button as well. So, without any further ado, let's welcome Dr. Kalpana Gopalan.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Nikhil.
So, ma'am, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
I say that I have the head of administrator, the heart of an academic, and the hands of a volunteer. So I moonlight. Other than my job, I have a kind of moonlighting career in academics as a researcher and a speaker. And I also associate with a number of NGOs and voluntary organizations. So broadly, that is how I spend my time. I've now spent 33 years in the civil service. It's been a great journey, full of ups and downs, full of variety. But that is the IAS. There's no job which provides as much experience as variety as the IAS does.
So, in brief, what are the responsibilities of an IAS officer?
In a very simple way, the IAS officer does just two things: makes policy and she implements programs. So broadly speaking, these are the two responsibilities. But having said that, there is no job which provides as much variety as the IAS does. And this variety has to be understood in its entirety because there are many facets to this. So first of all, that it provides, you say, a range of posts. You are a district collector, you are a managing director, you can be a secretary, and each has different functions. So that is, one facet of the variety. The second is that it provides a cross-sectoral work experience. Now, even taking me, I have worked in administrative reforms, in energy, in education, youth empowerment and sports. So this kind of cross-disciplinary or intersectoral understanding and experience that comes only with the IAS. I don't think any other job offers this kind of variety of in-depth experience. And then the third facet is that it gives you both field level experience, like you are an assistant collector or a district collector or a municipal commissioner. Then you are working in the field. You are actually going and implementing programs. And it also provides you desk level experience when you are deputy secretary or joint secretary or secretary to a department, additional chief secretary as I am now. So this is a secretariat job, and there you are making policy. So it provides that kind of both field and desk level experience. And then it is evolutionary, that as you progress in your job, as you get promoted, the nature and functions change and your responsibilities become more. So from what you do as assistant collector to commissioner to secretary, there is an evolutionary progress. So when we speak of variety, it's a kind of multi-pronged thing. So there's no other job which gives you that kind of variety as the IAS does.
So, ma'am, once you clear the civil service examination, which is actually one of the hardest examinations in India, what's the next step? How does the role of an IAS officer grow over a period of time?
Yeah, see, the once you clear the civil service examination, which itself takes over a year, you spend a very long time because you have a three-stage process. You have the preliminary examination, which is the filtering process. Then you have the main examination, which is a written examination and which largely tests your analytical skills. And then you have what is called the personality test, or colloquially people call it the interview. And once you clear these three, then you are selected for a range of services. The IAS being the premier service, then the IPS and a range of other services like the Indian Audit Accounts, Customs Service, Income Tax, and so on. So that is how you enter. That is the entry level. Once you enter the service, then you are sent for it to. I'm now speaking of the IAS from my experience, but this is broadly true of most services. You go for your training to the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy of National Administration. So LBS NAA, which is in Mussoorie, it's been there, I think, from the 1940s or something. And it's a hoary old and beautiful place. And here, it's a very, very grilling and grueling schedule that you have. You have both field training and you do actual study like a student, and you write examinations and all that. And here you are trained in the practicalities. Even your theoretical inputs are practical in nature because they are looking at the implementability, right? So you are being trained to be an administrator, not an academic. So it's a very different kind of study which is required than what you would do, for example, for a PhD. You do about, I think it's the foundation course is of a few months, which the IAS does along with all other services in the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy. And then the other services move out to their respective academies. The IAS stays behind in Mussoorie, and we complete 1 year of what is called phase 1. And phase 1 again is a very grueling schedule. And when I say study and field, the field means also your physical exercise, horse riding, running, jogging. We still have nightmares of Rana, who used to be our PT teacher, and he used to wake us up at 5 a.m. in the morning in that cold, and we used to run. I think most of us have retained that interest in physical exercise, which starts, for many, it starts in those days, or at least it gets routinized in those days. And then you have the second phase of the training, of the initial training, which is called district training. And there you are allotted to a district. I was allotted to Mysore. And here you are actually doing the real field level training. That is, you are actually working in the posts which you will supervise in future. So I have worked as a village accountant, which is the lowest rung of the revenue administration across the country. I worked as what used to be called the block development officer, BDO. Now it's called executive officer in Karnataka. I worked as a Tashildar. So you do this range of posts, you are attached to different offices, and you perform the functions of the head of those offices. So you are really having hands-on training. So that is broadly the training. And once you finish that, you are allotted to your respective subdivision. So you begin your career as a subdivisional magistrate or a sub-collector. In Karnataka, it's also called sub-collector or assistant commissioner. So the first 10 years are largely field-based. So you start with this subdivisional officer, and then you move up. You could be municipal commissioner, then you become the CEO of a Zilla Panchayat, and you become district collector. So about 10 to 11 years goes in the field level. Then you go into the secretariat, and you are deputy secretary and joint secretary. Now, in recent years, a new item has been introduced in the training, which we did not have, that the probationers or the officer trainees spend a short stint in the central secretariat in the union government. So they also get an idea of how the secretariat works. That is as part of their overall training. So broadly, this is how. And after 10 years, then you go into the secretariat. You do, and here also you can be managing director, or you can be secretary of a department, or a commissioner to a department, head of the department. And then there is the promotional avenue. So that is how broadly we have. So we have this kind of multifaceted training and multifaceted work, which is actually the foundation of a generalist service. So that generalist focus and the leadership responsibility is a constant. The actual functions may change, but these are the constants in the service.
What has your key learnings been working for the government as a civil servant?
The most important life experience, if I can say, and this has never ceased to amaze me, is the love and the wisdom of the people of India. Their capacity for acceptance and for diversity is something which is, our greatest and richest strength, I feel, as a nation. I'm not the first person to have experienced this. Most notably, Jawaharlal Nehru has spoken of this. But I have experienced this, and they embrace you with their love. So that is something which it always humbles me, and it makes me a kind of so proud and happy that I am part of this nation, which is so accepting. It's not just tolerance; it's more than tolerance. It's not that, oh, I'm tolerating you even though you're different from me. No, you're part of me, even though you may look different. We are the same. So that is something which is tremendous. And one more segment which I have been fortunate in interacting, especially in recent years, is the youth of India. And the intelligence, the savviness, and the energy. They kind of energize me with their intelligence and enthusiasm. And it's a very pragmatic kind of enthusiasm. It's not like I was when I was a child, or I was a young girl, or like my people of my generation. Here it's very pragmatic. You understand the flaws in the clientele or the group with which you engage, but at the same time, you're willing to serve and make lives better. So that is the kind of pragmatic intelligence and pragmatic idealism which I see, which really energizes me, and I learn a lot from the youth of India. So that is that's what I would like to share. That's what I would like everyone to be infected with, actually.
So, ma'am, like you mentioned, an IAS officer creates policies and then implements them. So, can you give us an example of it?
Let me take my immediate responsibility which I handle, which is youth and sports. So here we have both the state government and the central government. We have prepared policies. We have a youth policy for Karnataka. We have a sports policy for Karnataka, which is a kind of it's both a program document in the sense that we implement it, and it is a vision document as to what we aspire to. And similarly, you have in industry, you have in education, you have the new education policy which has come out just now. So the policy in India, the way we formulate, it is a dual thing. It's both something which aspires to what you wish to do in the long run, which is very clear in the new education policy, and it is also something which you would implement directly on the field. So a very important aspect of policy making is that it should be implemented. So this is with reference to policy making. So here you are handling a range of functions. So now if I'm making education policy, let us say, when I sit at the secretariat level as a secretary or a joint secretary, I'm implementing that policy by seeing that it is actually materializes on the field, or it manifests on the field in a proper way. So school administration, for example, whether schools are functioning properly, whether midday meal is served, whether the quality of food is good, hygiene is good, all those things go into the making of program implementation. So the policy and the program should be in alignment. If the policy is too visionary, it cannot be implemented on the field. If the field level apparatus is too weak, then no amount of policy is going to do the job. So that alignment is very, very important. So I hope I have given you some inkling of how it works.
So, ma'am, what do you think is the biggest challenge for women in the leadership roles today? And also, how do you think one can overcome those challenges?
See, the thing is, if you want to go into the reasons or what are the challenges, there are many structural and social challenges. I wouldn't like to focus on them. I am a pragmatist. I would like to look for solutions. One thing which is an article of belief for me is that there's no point waiting for grand revolutions to happen and sweep off the old, remove the biases and all the prejudices which our society has, and then usher in a new age. That is not going to happen. what we need to do is that we need to create and become the change ourselves. So the solution is actually, the problems are so many, but the solution is very simple. It starts with you and me. So basically, that is where you start. And let me give you an example. Usually, when question about women is asked, people give examples of another woman. And I have met many brave, courageous women. But I want to give you an example of a man, because I feel that if you really want the change has to happen both in men and women, and they should happen simultaneously. It can't be that one gender is sensitized and the other remains behind. So let me give you a very simple example. That there is about a boy called Mallikarjuna, right? Now I attend many functions and programs as an officer, and in most cases, 99.99% of cases, the programs which are held in rural areas begin with an invocation song. You also must be familiar with that. That's an Indian tradition. And again, most of these, the overwhelming majority of this music or rendering is done by either a woman or a group of women, a group of girls, depending on if it's a college, it will be a young girls. And here I went, this was I think in 2019, I had gone to a very place called Halahalli in Bidar. Now Bidar is a very backward district in Karnataka. Halahalli is literally, small, very small, not even a taluka place, a hobbly place in Bidar, some distance away from Bidar city. And this was an NSS program, National Social Service Program. And it began as usual with an invocation song. But the song was rendered by Mallikarjuna, not by a group of girls, not by a woman, but by Mallikarjuna, and he sang so very beautifully. And I in fact made it a point to congratulate him, because in that very very tiny way, I had this unconscious bias that it's not a bias, but a kind of I take it for granted that a song would be rendered only by a girl or a woman. And here was Mallikarjuna who did this so beautifully. So, and in that place where biases are very strong, social structures are very rigid, and it was in that very moment there was a mental, he created a mental shift in me that this is possible. And other than that, he was very shy. When I pointed out this, and I congratulated him, in fact I appreciated him in my speech, he was so shy, he went and sat at the back of the room. But in that, these things, these changes happen in very very small ways which we fail to notice. But this is the way, in this very very silent and simple ways, that revolutions happen. And I think that is going on around us. It's going on in multiple ways. Sometimes governments can help that. You remember very long ago, maybe this was even before your time, a chief minister in Tamil Nadu decided to give cycles to girl students, and that created a revolution, because for the first time they are mobile. Today, it's so common, but what I'm speaking of is perhaps about 30-40 years ago. For me, that key lies in capacity. Capability is very important, and you will remember Amartya Sen's theory. You translate it into actual action. The key of women's empowerment, or the empowerment of any, I don't even like to call it empowerment, because empower means you are giving something to someone. No, it is to come from within, that you build that capability. And that is true of any group which is either not progressed enough or is discriminated against. Now, three aspects to this capability. One is competence, and that is easy, in the sense that you build that competence in yourself for in whatever you do, whether you are a working woman or a homemaker. Give that special value add which only you can give. You be the best at what you can do. Now, my aunt, for example, she had studied only up to primary school, but her knowledge of the world was outstanding. She could discuss easily on any topic. In fact, if you had interviewed her, now she is no more, but she would be able to stand her ground on anything. And she was also the world's best cook, so her competence there also was extraordinary. So that is one aspect of it. The second is courage. And again, when I'm speaking of courage, I'm not speaking of venerable icons like Jhansi Ki Rani or Joan of Arc. I'm speaking of the courage in small matters. Now, it's very easy to be courageous in large matters where you have a big cause. But when you are seeing unfairness right in front of your eyes, let us say a colleague of yours is discriminating against a woman, for example, to speak up and speak out, that requires courage. That requires a kind of quiet courage. Somebody is being rude to you, then you face that with a smile without going down. That requires courage. So, courage even in the small daily activities that we practice. And then compassion. Here again, let me give you an example, very recent example. We are all fighting the challenge of COVID-19. And there is this nurse called Pushpalata. She is an NSS coordinator and she is also a nurse. And she was put on COVID-19 duty. And she was so good with the patients and she was so dedicated to her work that the protocol requires that after 1 week you take a break, and then so that you get that you are in PPE all day long. Nurses cannot even remove their PPE. Doctors, after they finish their round, they can just they get a little break from that whole kit. But nurses may be called anytime, so they are in that suit all the time. So they are required to take that break. And she said, no, I want to continue. I'm able to do it. So we had to actually sit and persuade her that, take a break and come back again. So that is the third aspect, which is compassion. And, these three things, competence, courage, and compassion, together for me make capability. So I'm not thinking of capability in the sense of a degree or a higher education. It is, what you practice in your daily life. So that is something which, that is the key really, not some grand revolution.
Now, when you're working as a civil servant, you're working for the people. So, can you give us examples of certain assignments or certain tasks which you had the opportunity to work on?
Every day is memorable, but if I want to highlight a particular experience, then that is as district collector of Udupi. Now in Karnataka we call it deputy commissioner, but across India the phrase district collector is more understood. Therefore I'm using that. This was in the 90s. Udupi was a newly created district and I was the first district collector. So it was even by the standards of the IAS, it was a new experience because you are setting a whole district machinery in motion. And it was a fabulous experience. Expectations were very high, but everything else was lacking. Okay? Enthusiasm was high. I was very anxious to prove myself. It was my first posting as district collector, and I was also the new district's first district collector. But I decided that I would create a unique identity for my district. This meant running around in different directions because I had to create office space. I had to, use existing buildings, identify new land for creation of offices, transfer funds. We have been bifurcated from Mangalore or Dakshina Kannada, so I had to get funds transferred from there, and I had to get personnel transferred from there, and finally I had to get files transferred from there, which was a marathon task. One thing is that I had the support of the people, and both politicians and people of Udupi, the citizenry is extremely intelligent and well educated, very literate. They ask questions all the time, endless discussions, but they are part of this process of district building. So they took it upon themselves also. So it was not that I was working in isolation. We were chalking out an action plan for the development of the district without disturbing the ecology of the district, because if you have ever visited, any of you, it's a very beautiful place, very rich. Western Ghats are very rich and very environmentally conscious. So we did not want to disturb the ecology, but at the same time, we had to build up the infrastructure. That was one of the wonderful experiences I had where we could all work together. And we forgot those differences that bureaucrat, politician, public, we were all working together. And even today, when I visit Udupi, people still remember. Now it's about 2 decades, I think, and still people remember. That was what I started with, that the educational, tourist, and pilgrimage potential of the district has to be highlighted. And today, you are seeing that happen. And if you visit Udupi now, it beats Bangalore actually. And I remember about 6 months or 8 months ago, I had visited Udupi, and one advocate came to me and he introduced himself. He said, I used to argue in your court. As district collector, we hold court as magistrate. We are a district magistrate. And he told me that, see Udupi now. Now, look at this is because we have developed so much because you laid the foundation with a very good, hardworking, honest heart. And that was very fulfilling. So this kind of experience stays with you. So that is something which is a wonderful experience in my life.
And finally, one advice which you would give to today's youth who is preparing for the civil service examination and is aspiring to become a civil servant in India.
One is that prepare for the exam diligently, but understand that the IAS is not the be all and end all of life, right? Now things are very different today than they were in my time when we had very few professions. You could be a doctor or an engineer or an IAS officer. There wasn't much of a choice. But today you can make a decent livelihood and participate in nation building, whether you are in the IAS or outside. Right? Public service is not confined today to the government. Each of us can be a public servant. Sometimes you will find that you have a greater freedom when you are outside an organizational structure and you are freelancing. So I would like to make this more broad based. Write the exam. There's a study for the exam, prepare diligently. I wish you all the very best. But your life should be larger than service through one profession alone. It should be part of your life itself. And I always recommend, and this is very doable because I am doing it myself. I recommend a dual career for everyone. Okay? One is your career, that is your bread and butter, where what your livelihood for paying your bills, right? Another is your career where you pay back to society. And I want to emphasize this, that each of us has a personal social responsibility. So wherever you are, whatever you are here because you have had some support, meager as it may be, familial support, social support, institutional support, that has brought you where you are. And that will, stand you instead for the rest of your life. So it's our duty to give back. It's our responsibility to give back. And here, choose what goes after your heart, right? It could be, you yourself are an example. You are moonlighting as an interviewer. So choose a passion. If you're very good in music, for example, then, go and sing in a hospital or go and sing in an old age home. It cheers up their evenings. Or, you like poetry, then introduce the children of your neighborhood to the delights of Keats or Subramanya Bharati. That sharing in whatever is your own passion, your own interest, your own expertise, that will be your second career. And that is the career where you don't get paid, but you are paying back. So don't restrict your dreams. The Browning said, oh, that a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what is heaven for? I don't remember, I think it's Farale Polipi, but don't remember the poem. But your dreams should aspire to the sky. Your feet should be grounded on the earth. So that is what I would like to share. And that personal social responsibility is something which you should acknowledge and practice. And that is what I would advise anyone who wants to enter public service.
So, ma'am, thank you again for taking out your time and sharing these valuable points with us.
Thank you so much, Nikhil, and wish you all the very best, and wish all viewers the very best in their lives. Thank you so much.